This section of onboarding will cover incident reports. Let's do a brief overview of incident reports before we get into specifics. Incident reports are required if something unusual happens during your shift. Incident reports should be as objective as possible. They should report exactly what happened before, during, and after an incident, and they must be submitted within 24 hours of an incident. So when should an incident report be filled out? Oregon Administrative Rule 144-323-0063 gives an outline of when an incident report must be filled out. This rule states that when an injury, an accident, an act of physical aggression, or the use of physical interventions happen during a shift, an incident report must be filled out. Furthermore, Oregon Administrative Rule 411-317-0000 states that a serious or unusual incident must be reported. What counts as an unusual or serious incident under this rule? OAR have outlined what is considered an unusual incident to include serious illness or accident, death, injury or illness requiring inpatient or emergency hospitalization, a suicide attempt, when an individual contacts the police or is contacted by the police, a fire requiring the services of the fire department, an act of physical aggression, or an incident requiring an abuse investigation. A general rule of thumb when considering whether to fill out an incident report or not should be, when in doubt, fill it out. If you're not sure, go ahead and fill one out. It doesn't hurt to have a record of incident. If an incident occurs on shift, there are two ways for you to obtain an incident report. First, you can text 971-363-5671 and request a blank incident report form. Secondly, you can find a blank incident report form on the BTS portal. I will show you how to find that form now. The second option for finding an incident report is by navigating to the bettertogethersupports.com webpage. Go to the portal, log in, and if you navigate slightly to the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see a drop down here that says Resources. The third option is Incident Report Form. When you click on this, it will take you right to the incident report form. Please be sure that you're logged in. Check that we have your information correct up here. Go ahead and fill out the form and then hit submit when you're done. Now that you know when to fill out an incident form and how to request one, let's talk about what you should put in the form itself. This is what the blank incident report form will look like. The first piece of information that we will need is the date the incident happened. You will also need the time of the incident. Be as close to the time here as you can get it. We know you may not always be 100% sure of this, but be as close as possible. Next, you're going to put approximately how long the incident occurred. Use your best judgment here for how long you believe the incident took. Next, you'll put the location that the incident happened. Try to be as specific as possible here. For example, if it happened at the store, which store? Where is it located? Was the incident in a specific section of the store? For instance, the customer restroom or the clothing section? Be specific here. Don't just put happened at the store. Next, you will need to fill in the client's initials. This should be the first two initials of the first and last name. For example, if my client's name is Frodo Baggins, I would put FRBA for the client initials. The next section of the form asks what type of incident happened. You can select multiple options if that's appropriate. There's also an option for other if it's not covered in the incident list. This section asks whether PPI was used. This will not apply to every client. Only clients with PPI and their ISPs and DSPs with iOS training should be filling this part out. If the client has a plan for PPI and iOS approved interventions were used, you're going to click yes. In the next box, you're going to be specific about why and what PPI was used. The next part asks whether there was an emergency physical restraint involved. For the most part, this should be iOS approved interventions. But if for some reason you needed to physically restrain the client from risk of harm, you'll need to check this box. For instance, if your client was about to run into traffic and you had to physically hold them to keep them from harm, you would check this box. Be sure to describe any emergency restraints in the next section where it asks you to describe the incident. So, what happened shortly before the incident? This is referred to as the antecedent, or what happened directly before. The purpose of this section is to understand the function of the behavior. What exactly happened that led to the incident in question? This may be something like their routine was interrupted, they were frustrated over something, or there was a particular trigger for the behavior. The next question is what caused the incident. This question may seem repetitive, but what we want here was what the final thing that caused the incident. In the previous question, you're describing circumstances that led up to the incident, while for this question, you're describing the specific trigger. After you've described the cause, you're going to go into detail about what happened. As with all sections of the incident report, try to be as specific as possible. This should not be speculation, but what actually occurred in as linear an explanation as possible. This section should include what happened from the beginning to the end of the incident. After describing the incident, the next section is going to ask for who was present during the incident. If you know the names and relationships of the people involved, please include those. If you're unsure, for example, if it happened in public, you can put the general public or perhaps a store employee, something along those lines. Then you're going to describe how the incident resolved. For example, you might put, client was put into restraints, the client calmed after 3 minutes, or restraints were released after a specific time and client was able to move on with the rest of their day. Again, describe exactly what happened. Do not speculate. For this next section, you as the DSP can do a little reflecting. This is where your day-to-day knowledge of the client, shift notes you've taken, or actions that line up with the ISP goals and would be helpful in future situations would go. Your expertise with the client is important here. Lastly, you're going to put your name in the form and hit submit. Once the incident report is filled out and you've submitted, please let us know immediately that you've submitted a form. We will download a copy and send it to the case manager.